I have returned, both from the small period of time between my testing stream and now, and I haven't streamed, like, really in quite a while. Sorry. Alright. Explanation of things. I'm gonna jump right into the stream here. I'm not gonna talk about what's been going on. I'll talk about that later, or some other time. Alright, so... Explanation of funny picture of me in bottom right corner. My webcam broke. It wasn't really working well to begin with, to be honest. The webcam was... I bought it off online, and when it arrived, the cable was frayed, and I managed to get it to work, but apparently the cable has completely died now, so the device probably works fine, but the cable's dead. Yes. So... Bam! There's a webcam. Hey, it's my face. I have slightly more hair than in that picture, and significantly less hair than I had the last time I streamed. The length of my hair oscillates significantly. Hello! I'm also sitting in TeamSpeak. So you didn't hear that on stream, but Fireball just said hello. I think that was Fireball. It was in fact Fireball. Alright, so I'm going to turn that on so you can hear Fireball, his sultry, sexy voice. Greetings, Fireball.
Hello.
Oh, he's trying now.
Long time no see.
Probably... I can't hear him well, so I'm going to turn it up a little bit here. Turn it up!
That was Fireball.
It was indeed Fireball. People are joining me. I was hoping that would happen. Hello, T-Love. Good to see you.
Hey, XCOM. Good to see you, too.
Alright. Chad is going, XCOM streaming? What madness is this? Right then. So, explanation of more things on the stream. But you can see... Yes, there! No, there! God, this is hard. Is the, God, that looks pixelated. Jeez! XCOM should really fix his Minecraft, right? No. It's better than that. Anybody want to make a guess as to what we're looking at?
2 blocks of wool?
That's what it looks like.
It is indeed 2 blocks of wool. But there's something more significant going on here. And it has nothing to do with the blocks of wool, actually.
Well, is the blurry image actually part of the game?
Yes. The blurry image is part of the game. Alright, so this particular bit of technology is not going to impress very many people because iTunes did this before. Whoop! And the people in the chat are now waiting, like, in the TeamSpeak chat, are waiting for this to actually show up on the stream.
Well then, that was... That actually...
That was unexpected!
Yeah, that was actually quite unexpected.
Alright, so... iTunes done this before. I mean, Portal Mod did this before, basically. I think this is done differently from the way the Portal Mod did it. But... So, done this before in that this is really just these 2 blocks of wool over here looking from this direction. Alright? I'm not giving these portals solid white backgrounds because I haven't done anything fancy for the back. Alright, so... This gets crazier because... You dim... Let's go with the Nether. The Nether, you're over here now. Oh look! It's the Nether. You're over here. So, yes, this is doing a live render of another dimension. Client-side render. Let's, I think if we try and do the end, it's just gonna do the sky, basically.
Good lord, this is
I have a quick question about
crazy
that
looking.
real fast.
So
if it's,
hang on a second.
if it's a
Let
client,
me finish my demo real quick. But
Okay.
yeah, it's just the sky here. So it's live. The sky is changing as I move around, but you can't see any blocks there. What was your question, Fireball?
Okay, so if it's a client-side render, How does the client know what's there? Because the client shouldn't be able to know what's there in real time because it's not there.
That's the cool part about this. What it's doing is there's actually a whole bunch of heavy lifting going on in the background that sends chunks kind of in a parallel sideline pipeline, sends the chunks for these worlds so that you can view them. The chunks are sent to the client side now with this. It's just kind of stored off in its own little side thing. It's throttled, so it won't impact the server much. And then the client just has the data and it can render it however it likes. So yeah, that's pretty much the core of what I want to announce and want to show. There's a lot more to it though. So we're gonna switch out of this one, and I'm gonna start up a new instance of Minecraft here real quick and demonstrate that in linking panels. And the reason I have to start up a new instance is this is its own mod. I have built this as its own separate mod called LookingGlass, and this mod will be released separately. It is primarily API and library mod, and it's built so that other mods can pull information and be able to render these other worlds. Technically, LookingGlass does the rendering and just provides a texture. So you just draw that texture wherever you want to draw it, and then inform LookingGlass, okay, please render a new frame. Alright, how are we doing? Okay. So I'm going to go in here. Is it open source? Not yet, but it will be. I'm going to release it as an open source mod on GitHub. But at the moment, there's a lot of things I want to try and clean up, and there's some things that are kind of fuzzy and stuff that I don't want to put on GitHub. Not to mention a whole bunch of history things I need to clear out. But yeah, it will be an open source mod, and it will be on GitHub. And yes, you can make remote cameras and draw the texture on a TV somewhere. That's the point. Alright, so let's look at this one. Hang on, it didn't load up right. Demo effect! Why didn't you load up right? I'm looking at logs. Could not find... It's because I changed the location of it. I can fix that pretty quickly. Good. I changed the class name of my API handler. So this uses the same API system as I've put into Mistcraft recently. Mistcraft was actually kind of... That's the thing. I was working on this API system and went, let's test this in something live. So that's what's going on here. Are you two following here, Fireball and T-Love?
Oh, I am. And I have another question.
Alright, what's your question?
Alright, so I'm assuming it didn't work and you're restarting, but I'm assuming that the little page is going to show the, like the looking glass effect, where you click to teleport? Is that
yes,
what
it's
you're
going to show that. You're going to be able to see
So my
that.
question is when I make a new age, is it going to be able to show it since the age hasn't actually been generated yet?
It will render black.
Okay.
This is both a nice mechanic in-game and canonically correct. Because in Myst, if you hadn't traveled to the world yet, the panel was black. Just solid. And then the first time you linked, then it would fill in. Now it does that. Alright. No, this is the wrong thing. Where did I call it? I've changed the name of this class, but I didn't change it in all locations, apparently. Because there's one place where it's stored as a string. There we go. That should fix it. Alright. We'll be able to walk through the Looking Glass eventually. It's part of the reason I named it Looking Glass. I really hope for that at some point to be able to just walk through them like portals. But at the moment, it's not particularly feasible the way things are structured. In Minecraft, it's kind of hard to do, because Minecraft doesn't have this swapping worlds thing at all. So that'll have to be built into Looking Glass. But it should be fun. Also, other limitations. At the moment, it doesn't synchronize entities. In fact, it doesn't really synchronize. It sends the data once, and then just stops. Which is fine, really, for what I'm using it for. But obviously, we want more. We want to be able to say, okay, these blocks changed. Update. It'll get there, but it's not there just yet. Alright, there we go. Link effect. Or link panel effect. We can now see the other world. I'm going to leave that there for a minute here. They're not... Well, it's just a texture. It depends on however it's rendered. The command I was demonstrating earlier is actually part of Looking Glass. So you can actually demonstrate Looking Glass without this craft, which is what I was doing earlier. The actual render was on an entity, which could be solid, but wasn't. Alright, so some background on this. This has gone through a lot of versions, which is part of the reason I have a lot of things to clean up. It's been about 3 different mods, basically. Let's start with some history. This is a feature that's been long requested in Mystcraft. People have wanted this for a long time, to be able to look into the other world, because it's cool. Well, there were 2 add-ons for Mystcraft that tried to solve this. The first one was Draco's. Draco built a mod that just kind of takes a snapshot of when you link through and keeps that. And then renders that whenever. The other add-on was basically Shadow King 97, thank you so much. Because this is modeled off of his work. I've been talking about building this, how this works, exactly this system, for a while, and I knew how to do it, but I didn't want to spend the time to do it. Particularly, I didn't want to do the research into the render system, because visuals are secondary for me. But of course, people are going, but I really want it! And Shadow King went, I want it so bad I'll build it for you. So I described how everything should work, how everything should fit together, and he went and he built it. So I had a designated code monkey. Thank you, Shadow King. And then he had this add-on. He's not been supporting it for a while, but he gave me the source code that I could play with it. I got the source code, I looked at it, and I'm sorry, Shadow King, your code is really messy. So the code was actually very standard prototype. It worked, it did exactly what it was designed to do, but there were statics and things all over the place, and stuff was moving in weird ways, and there was no ownership or parenting or anything like that. So I went through and I rewrote it to fit my standards. So at this point, Shadow King has saved me a ton of time in research, but probably not that much coding time. Oh well, it was a lot of fun to recode. So at this point, or at that point, I was trying to make it so that I could integrate the code into Mystcraft. I got to that point and went, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to actually integrate it into Mystcraft. I want to make it its own mod. I want to make it so that other mods can use it, because it is such a cool thing. And I want to open source it, because that way, if things go wrong, which with this kind of system I expect is likely, though I have tested it on a Forgecraft 2 instance, and it works. Which is amazing. Or at least I tested on the Forgecraft 2 a bit back, so something might have come up since. What version of Minecraft does Looking Glass currently? We're on 1.7.10. Same as Mistcraft. Right, so at that point I was going, okay, well I want to build this mod as its own mod. So it's now its own mod, called Looking Glass. Which, if you're not certain, is a reference to Through the Looking Glass. Alright. Questions from TeamSpeak.
Yes. Okay, so my first question is that normally Mistcraft worlds are unloaded when you're not there, unless there's a chunk loader. I noticed while you had the page open that it is turning nighttime. So, is Looking Glass loading that world or that age?
No, sort of. What happens is when I opened the book, Looking Glass went and sent a I want to view it at this spot to the server. It sends the information to the server. The server goes, okay, I'm enabled, here's the information you need, and it just starts sending chunks. And then once it's done doing that, it just stops. It doesn't care anymore. This is one of the things that we'll have to improve over time, but for the moment it just kind of stops. It forgets about the view. And then Looking Glass has its own proxy world, which is just a world instance of this dimension with the chunks in it. And it ticks that. It's not getting new updates from the server, it's just doing client-side updates. So it's not actually becoming night in that world. If I travel to it now, well, it happens to actually be night. Amusing. But the time is not actually synchronized. It's not keeping that world loaded. It unloads the world.
Now, if the world were to be loaded because, say, somebody was standing there on the platform, would it continue to send the chunks, and would you see them in the page, in the Looking Glass?
Not presently, no. That's, again, one of the things that it needs a system for remembering these views, of keeping track of them, and sending updates and things to them in from the server to the clients. It's not there yet. It will be. It's not there yet. We probably need to do that first, and then we'll start moving towards synchronizing entities. And I really want to be able to say, okay, look through, and there's a creeper there. Though technically in Myst, you couldn't see who was on the side of the link. And actually, if the world's not loaded, then the entities would just stand still, which is kind of funny. If they loaded at all, because, for instance, you wouldn't be able to see a creeper. The entities just disappear when the world unloads, I think. Creepers, anyway. Alright. XComp, does it work with bases? I don't understand the question.
Maybe like interlinking panel?
Yeah. Hang on, this should be interlinking. There we go. So that's the room I'm currently standing in. You can't see me because entities aren't sent. But that's the room I'm standing in. So if I get it right, the view is now just a mirrored world from the real one. So if someone were to change the time in the viewing world, we wouldn't see anything change in the view. This is correct. This is one of the failings at the moment. It's minor enough that I'm nonplussed at the moment. But yeah, if the time were to change, or if somebody were to break a bunch of blocks, or drop a meteor on your house or something, this wouldn't actually change. The burn away effect. I actually have to thank again Shadow King for this one, because the effect is taken from Riven. But he built shaders to do that effect. So Mistcraft now has shaders, and I have shaders to do that effect, because he's done that. Alright, so let's see here. What else can we look at? There's another world. Another world. The color around the burnaway is the dimension-specific color, which is pulled from its name at the moment. I still haven't put anything in to be able to control the color of dimensions, but yeah. Sorry, Super Sam, I don't recognize the... So the request is sent So the crest is sent on book open, correct? Yes. So when the book is opened, Mistcraft actually tells LookingGlass, I want to create a new view at this location. LookingGlass goes and creates the view, sends the data to the server, and waits. At some point, the server sends the data back. Okay, here's this thing. The client then goes, okay, the view is now ready. And Mistcraft goes, it's ready! And starts rendering it. So all that's happening pretty fast, actually. Is this going to be the next Mistcraft update or not yet? It will be released today or tomorrow. Yep. It's today or tomorrow. Will there be a way to add this effect to a portal so you can look through it? Well, let's go back to my commands. And let's view some dimensions. Like, honest-to-goodness dimensions, and not just, you know, the vanilla craft. Alright, view dim 5. I don't remember if 5 was a cool dimension. This is the wrong side. Yeah, that's a pretty cool dimension. I was using that one for meteor tests. Let's try and stand here. Make it view dim 12. I have no idea if 12 is a cool dimension. Well, it's not particularly cool from right here. There's a cave. Look at that. You can kind of see up the cave. That's where you'd link in, I guess. Can you see portals in portals? Well, at the moment, since entities aren't synced, no. But you'll be able to once that's working. Since basically it's the same trick as reflections. It is a render to texture, and then you have a texture. So for the first frame, it wouldn't have anything, which is why the ready flag. But once it's rendered, the render is there. You can re-render that image as many times as you like. So you could actually use this to render mirrors. What about being able to change the nether portal block to view what's on the other side? Oh, well, I wouldn't be able to do it for nether portals, I don't think. Maybe, but I don't think I'd want to do that anyway. But maybe for some of my... sorry. For some of my portals. In that the Mistcraft portals are of dynamic size, so knowing how to render in that space is funny. But maybe I could build a bunch of entities and render basically the trick I'm using for this. Right. And this is again just one big entity rendering a live texture. In order to get the, as I move around, it moves, and you can see that that's not quite right. I just kind of threw that together at 5 a.m. one morning. I really wasn't paying a lot of attention, I just wanted it to work. So it sort of works. But the effect's not quite right. It's close, it's good enough. But the way that works is basically there is a camera object, and it is animated based off my position. That's why these rotate. It's a camera object, and it just kind of spins around. Alright, we'll be able to have an infinite loop of one looking glass looking at another another looking back. Yes! Yes, you can do that! And it will do the same effects. It will be the same... I actually accidentally did that earlier. That I rendered my screen in OBS, and it kind of does that little back effect, and it has the slow transition. It's because it's every frame using the previous frame. So it will do that if you kind of move between them or whatever when entities are synced, then it will have kind of a delayed effect. So we have the technology for CCTV cameras. Across dimensions, yes! Alright. What is the... 5 a.m. coding when stuff gets done. Well, more was getting done before 5 a.m. It just kind of, by the time I was getting to the animation, it was 5 a.m. Alright. Yeah, we're not yet to that point, because entities aren't synced. You won't be able to see the other portal. So let's... I think it's going to be to right here. So let's... no, it's looking over there. It's also going to be looking the wrong direction. So yeah, you can kind of see that it's... Whoop. Suddenly speed. Whoops! I hit the portal. So yeah, it's there. You can't see it. No entity syncs. See? Does it request the chunks if the client already has the chunks? I don't think so. I don't remember. It might. In which case it just kind of sends the same data again. Let's find out. Let's break that block. Oops, that was the teleport, not the... Okay. So yeah, it resent the data. That's good. I don't remember what block I just broke. Is it one of those? No. It's one of those. Okay. Alright. Okay. Needs some anti-aliasing. Nah, it's just really low resolution. One of the things is, I've got a bunch of these going right now, don't I? Those different portals are actually separate views. The reason for this is so that you can have different resolutions. That's kind of trippy right there. Because that really looks like it's just part of the room. Yeah. So... Alright, so... Yeah, it does resend the data. But of course it doesn't resend it after I fix the block. Good to check. Alright. I think that's much everything I wanted to demonstrate. Any questions from Twitch or TeamSpeak?
No.
Alright. Okay. Yeah,
Looks really,
say again?
I can't wait to... It looks really cool, though. Can't wait to play with it on ForgeCraft.
Well, LookingGlass is going to be released... I'll end up on top of this. Turns. LookingGlass is going to be released today, or tomorrow, whenever I release the next build of Mistcraft. Which will be today or tomorrow. And at the same time, I will put it on the ForgeCraft stuff so it can be put into ForgeCraft. Mistcraft does not require it. Mistcraft will run just fine without LookingGlass. It uses the API system again, which uses IMC, callback, funny stuff. But, yeah. So that'll work. It'll be there. Does the rendering have any frame rate limiting? Well, it's once per render tick. At the moment I don't have anything for dropping frames. That's an entity, and I can move it around however we like. But I don't. I'm trying to read the chat here. There's a bunch of stuff going by. I can imagine Slowpoke having a Dr. Evil type lair with screens showing everyone's bases. Alright. Does LookingGlass add any blocks? No. What would happen if the client does not have, but the server has some LookingGlass views? Simply black or weird things? It's not possible for the server to have LookingGlass views and the client not have them. Really. Aside from the entity syncing, in which case you just wouldn't see it. Yeah, at the moment you can't see entities, so it's not quite CCTV, but it's close. This is going to delay my update to the NEI add-on for sure. This is coming from Held Blair, who does the Mistcraft NEI plugin. Will it also work with Mistcraft portals? As demonstrated, not yet. Maybe not ever. But maybe I'll build some kind of portal thing that it does work for Mistcraft with. There's probably a bunch of things we're going to do with it, testing things over time on Forgecraft 2. For instance, kind of a, planned thing, but I really want to build a TARDIS on Forgecraft 2 now. So, being able to walk through the portal and ending up in the TARDIS. Because it would be so cool. I am well, thank you for asking. Yes, LookingGlass is going to be open source. Rendering it as a texture was cheaper. It's easier to kind of manage in a general sense. I could try and do cropping based off of entity hitbox and things like that, but then it becomes more complicated in terms of you have to know how it's going to be rendered in order to actually do rendering. So, maybe not. We'll see. You have to make a TARDIS now. Yes, I know. Anyone care to explain what's happening? Somebody just joined. I'm demonstrating cool new technology. Go back to looking at this book, because I like this book. How many lines? I don't know how many lines are involved in LookingGlass, and I'm not sure what percentage of them I had to rewrite. Some of it I managed to keep from Shadow King stuff, like the entity, or the server chunk detection for figuring out which chunks to send. That's Shadow King stuff. I haven't bothered to change that. What happens if you run the LookingGlass command, the LookingGlass view dim command with a command block? I don't know. It's a good question. Quickly, steal or borrow all of Mist's tech. Well, the whole point of making this an API thing, whatever, is you won't have to put this into your own mod. You can use the LookingGlass mod and then be able to render these things as long as the LookingGlass mod is included. That's the point. We'll be able to set the width and height directly in the game as a non-up player, I mean. At the moment, the command is just a demo purpose thing. It doesn't really have a whole lot of stuff. The resolution is completely up to the control of the mod requesting the view. So, for instance, Mistcraft requests a 132 by 83 texture because it fits in the book. Yeah, so you don't want to make LookingGlass a dependency necessarily, unless you really want to depend on LookingGlass. But you can the way it works is that there's an API, and you'll just be able to send off a API request via IMC, and then you get an API instance, and with that instance you can work with LookingGlass. This is part of the reason that LookingGlass isn't actually open source just yet, because that API system is only half done. Alright. And you won't be able to use the LookingGlass demo command as a non-op, I don't think. You have to be op. It is currently snowing in that dimension. Interesting. Well, it's probably not actually snowing in that dimension. Just the client side ticking makes it snow in that dimension. It can snow in that dimension. Yeah, it's IMC to request the API instance, and then you just get an API object. The how to do that is actually included in the API classes. There's a comment section that explains it. It's the same way that Mistcraft handles its API. Do the other sides need to be chunk loaded? Nope. It just loads the chunks for as long as it needs to actually pull the data. In the future, when we can actually do synchronization and stuff, there'll probably be the option to make it so that the view keeps the other side chunk loaded. Maybe. I'd actually... Mistcraft certainly won't use that. Well, at least not for the books. It might use that for... Do you know what the crystal viewer is? In the Mist canon, there was a crystal viewer which could look into other dimensions. A lot like this. And that might work as a chunk loader. A remote chunk loader. Weird. Right, the desync is probably desynced here with the snow. I mean, it's snowing in my local copy of the client, but if I create a new view, it might not be snowing. So, what was that? Dimension 5? Yeah, the snow went away. It wasn't snowing. Yeah. Will you put it on CurseForge for ease of download? Yes, I've actually already created the CurseForge location. It's not visible at the moment because there's nothing there, but it's there. How much memory does each view require on the client if they have client-side fake worlds? Not that much. I don't notice a big change in memory usage here, so some, but it's a handful of extra chunks. That's about it. And it's not even full chunks. It just kind of pulls the chunks that you can see. Alright. See, that would be the advantage of creating a player instance of the dimension. It handles the loading and entities for you. Super Sam, this is covered. There's actually, the camera is an entity. It's a player entity. So, no worries there. Does it affect FPS a lot? Well, my FPS drops a bit, in fact quite a bit, if I have a whole bunch of these rendered at once. Because there's currently, how many? 6 on the screen? That's 6 extra render passes, basically. Sort of. At the end of the render tick. So it does affect FPS. It will affect FPS, just because it will. It can... Something to be added to it to detect, okay, the FPS is dropping significantly. Do some frame skipping. But otherwise, at the moment, it doesn't bother. Normally my FPS is 60. See? So it drops down to 30 here if I've got 6 portals open. But if I'm only looking at 1, I can still pull off 60. Usually. Yep. There we go. Calculations on the GPU, please. Do as much on the GPU as possible, I think. The biggest thing is that it has to actually go through the rendering of everybody else's stuff. As said, I've tested this on a Forgecraft 2 instance, and the key example there is when rendering other people's things, it will render them exactly as they render. So if a block normally drops your frames per second, your FPS is going to drop when looking through the portal too. But yeah. They do stop rendering if you don't look at them. This is because there is a flag. You actually have to say, okay, give me a new frame. Otherwise it won't bother rendering new frames of that view. So it just kind of drops off. I'm very well. Thank you again for asking. People in chat are very nice. They keep asking me how I am. Well, GPU rendering is actually not that hard. It's just I can't do GPU rendering of what other people have not GPU rendered. What happens when you press F7? Oh my goodness, it works through that! That's cool!
That's funny.
Yep, that's amusing. Good job, Chicken Bones. I wasn't really sure if that was going to work, because there's actually some things that probably don't render on these extra render frames, because it's using the render tick. So anything that uses the render tick probably won't render. Because. Yep. Win. Alright. So I think that's pretty much the announcement. To recap, this is demonstration of LookingGlass. It is its own mod. Mistcraft pulls the API from LookingGlass and uses that. And LookingGlass will be up on CurseForge this weekend, along with a new build of Mistcraft that uses it. And what else? LookingGlass will be open source on GitHub. The main reason for this is for collaboration, because if things break, then, or if, particularly, if other modders want to be able to use it to do things, which is kind of one of the goals, then they can go, well, it doesn't support this yet, and they can make a pull request to add that in. Alright, so let's... People are throwing different hotkeys I should try. Whoop! There we go. Alright, so let's try F3A to reload chunks. It only works in this world, it doesn't reload the chunks in those worlds. What was the thing for chunk boundaries? F9?
F11 or something like that.
Oh jeez, those work too. That's funny. Can't see any here. You kind of can't see any through here. But you can see them through there. That's funny looking. That's a lot of win. That worked real well. And it's basically just re-render. Render everything to texture for here. Alright, so, yeah, somebody said, use F11! I went, that's full screen. But I should be doing that anyway. So I did that. Kinda didn't expect it to vanish completely and come back, but that was okay. Yes, one of the things is I'm fairly certain that iTunes, if he feels like doing things with this, can have a lot of fun with this. Alright. Any questions? Anything anybody wants to see? If not, I think I'm... Alt F4! Wait. If not, I think I'm going to wrap up the stream. And I can switch from there to do other things if we like. What is going on over there? Oh, it's the sun rising. Okay. What's LookingGlass? I just got here. That's LookingGlass, basically. Will you do this for 1.8 eventually? Eventually. Whenever I update Mistcraft, I'll update LookingGlass. Yep, look, it's snowing in that dimension again, sort of. Thank you, Cyril. No. Yes, that sunrise is rather perfect. Aside from the fact it just started snowing again. Oh, the time went back. Oops. Alright, so I believe that's it for now. I hope you are excited, and I shall see you again soon. Au revoir for now. Where is my mouse? Oh, it's trapped over here. Alright, now.